Welcome everyone. Excuse me. Welcome everyone to a little bit of light awaiting Moshiach. I'd like to go back to the words of the Rambam Maimonides in his 13 Principles of Faith, the 12th principle where he talks about the belief in Moshiach. And the Rambam writes, "Ve'ein koivin lo yizman mesuyim." We do not designate a specific time for him to arrive. And we do not explain verses in order to derive from them the time that he'll come. Chachamim Amru, our sages have said, Tafuach Daiton Shel Machashvei Kitzin, which means may the minds of those who calculate ends suffer agony. So to go ahead and make some kind of a calculation to say when Mashiach will come, and to even try to do that from verses in Tanakh, the Rambam says is something that we do not do, and our sages were very unhappy with. Now, it's known that there were many great sages, early sages, who did give dates for the arrival of Mashiach. Rabbeinu Sadia Gaon did that. Rabbi Sadia Gaon was before the Rambam, and he did it. Now, the date that he gave didn't come true. Didn't happen. But I guess it would seem that there were those who disagreed with the Rambam. But the Rambam has the Talmud that says that the Chachamim, the sages, were very unhappy with those who calculated when Mashiach will come. But what's further difficult, as brought down here in the Art Scroll on Imamin book from Rabbi Yechezkel Elias, that Rambam, in his famous Igeres Teiman, when he wrote a letter to the Jews of Yemen, who were suffering terribly at the hands of those who they lived under, the Rambam there writes that Mashiach's date for arrival is unknown and actually not possible to decipher, to figure out. But then even after he says that, he himself writes later on that his family has a tradition from father to son all the way back to the time the Jewish people were exiled from Yerushalayim, that the end date, meaning the date for Mashiach's arrival, is alluded to in Parashas Balak, and then provides that date. Even in the Rambam himself. The Rambam in that letter himself said there's no way to predict it, no way to calculate it, and then he says we have a tradition as to when it is. So an answer that's given is that this prohibition, or when the sages were against calculating a date for the Rav Mashiach, that is when one is basically trying to provide a definitive date. When you're saying he will come by this time, a definitive date is forbidden to do. It's very dangerous, as the Talmud itself says. That same Talmud that says about the problem with calculating ends, the Talmud says, for they say, meaning people, since the date of the end that we calculated has arrived, the Mashiach did not come, he will never come. If you give a definitive date for Mashiach is going to come, and he doesn't come, people are going to get very dejected. People are going to start questioning, having a lot of questions about the coming of Mashiach. You know, they became so convinced that he was supposed to come at this time, and didn't come. Maybe he's not going to come. Maybe the whole thing is chas v'shalom not true. So if you give a definitive date, that's a problem. However, the dates given by many sages have been interpreted as not a definitive date, but a potential date, a potential time for the coming of Mashiach, meaning that these times, however they're calculated, are times that are more auspicious, more opportune for Mashiach to come. Why they are, what it's based on, I haven't really studied these calculations. But the point of the calculations are to say these are auspicious times. These are opportune times for the coming of Mashiach. What does that mean, and how does that relate to us? Like, why would they tell us this? And the answer that Rabbi Elias gives is because an opportune time for Mashiach means that he's closer to coming. And if he's closer to coming, then we have more ability to bring him. if he's closer, if Mashiach is, so to say, further away from the door. So it takes much more to get him through the door. But if he's closer to the door, then it takes less to get him through the door. And therefore, knowing about the opportune time for Mashiach means to tell us that we should strengthen our service of Hashem, create merits, and with those merits, hopefully, we'll be able to get him through the door. Because right now, it takes less. It doesn't take as much to get him through the door when we have these opportune times than when we don't have these opportune times. Because he's right there. He's waiting to come in. And we have the ability to bring him in when he's closer. We have a greater ability to make the difference than when he's further away. So the point of giving these times, these dates for the coming Mashiach, we're not to say they were definitive dates, but they were opportune times. Now, for us, I don't know of anybody who's been giving any dates for the coming of Mashiach. And whoever is has to be someone that's very credible. And if we were to have such a person, and we'd have such a date, then it would mean it's a time to take advantage of. There are certain signs that we have, traditions about that these periods of time, certain periods of time are more opportune, more open for the coming of Mashiach. And again, if we have them, I don't really, very often when we have terrible suffering, we say, oh, Mashiach must be coming. Could be. Perhaps it does mean that. Not definitive. But if it is what it means, and if a person feels that's what it means, so what does that mean? What should they do now? Just sit around and wait? No. If this is a time that seems to be saying Mashiach is coming, then we need to take advantage of that, and we need to put in the effort and strengthen our service of Hashem to create the merits to bring him through, to get him through the door. And perhaps we can even say that because we believe that every day has the potential for Mashiach to come, that means that if every day has that potential, then our strengthening our service of Hashem enables him to come closer. And who knows, maybe we're in a day that's very opportune for Mashiach to come, and really this is the day to really take advantage and to really strengthen ourselves so that we create the merits for Mashiach to come. So this is a very, this is a lengthy discussion. This whole idea about calculating when Mashiach will come has been around for a long time. And we need to understand them as opportune times for coming. And if we, in some way or another, we know of an opportune time, then clearly it's a time to take advantage of creating the merits for him to come, to bring him closer, to bring him through the door. And to realize that every single day we have the potential to do that. Every time we strengthen our Torah and our mitzvahs, we are bringing Mashiach a step closer. May we be able to see that day come very, very soon. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. It's been a little bit of light. Take care.